My car was parked perfectly legally, without disturbing anyone, but this woman couldn't bear the sight of a simple American sticker. She decided it was offensive to the neighborhood and took completely insane action. She called a tow truck and had my car taken away. The problem? She had no right to do that. Now my car is gone, and she's going to find out that she messed with the wrong person. I knew this woman had problems, but I never imagined she would be capable of something so ridiculous. She had picked fights for absurd reasons before. Once, she approached me at the market to complain that I mowed the lawn after hours. Another time, she tried to report me to the HOA because my garbage can was too full. He was the kind of person who can't live without picking on someone. But now she'd outdone herself. The day started like any other. I woke up, had my coffee, and got ready to leave the house. I took my key, opened the door, went down the steps to the balcony, and my car wasn't there. I stopped in the middle of the road, confused. I was absolutely sure that I had left my car there the night before. It was always where I parked, right in front of my house, without disturbing anyone, without breaking any rules. But now there was just an empty space. My first thought was theft, but that didn't make sense. The neighborhood was safe, with cameras on every corner, and besides, there was no broken glass, no sign of a break-in. So my mind went to another possibility. They towed my car? But why? I didn't have any fines, I hadn't parked in a prohibited place, and the town hall never collected vehicles without warning. And that's when a thought crossed my mind. The woman, the neighbor who had done everything to try to annoy me. The woman who looked askance every time she passed my house. The woman who hated my car with all her might. And when I say hated, it wasn't an exaggeration. She hated it because I had a political sticker on the rear window. Yes, she had already approached me a few times to complain that it was disrespectful to express my opinion like that, as if I'd stuck a neon sign on her garage. But I never listened. After all, my car, my rules. Only now, looking at that empty space where my car should have been, a doubt began to form. Would she have the courage to call a tow truck just because of a sticker? I mean, that would be completely crazy. But this woman wasn't normal. And when I reached the mailbox and saw the ridiculous note she'd left, I knew I was about to deal with the biggest absurdity of my life. I picked up the folded paper with fingers trembling with rage, and as soon as I read it, my head almost exploded. Your vehicle has been removed to maintain the harmonious environment of the neighborhood. The community cannot tolerate offensive messages. If you would like it back, please contact the towing company. Offensive messages? Did she really have my car taken away just because she didn't like the sticker on it? And then she wrote that note as if she was sending me a kind message? My heart started racing with anger. But the worst thing of all, the note didn't say where my car was. No address, no phone number, nothing. She simply made my car disappear and left me with no clue. I closed my eyes and took a deep breath, trying to hold back the urge to bang on her door and scream until this woman confessed to her blunder. But instead, I did something much more effective. I took out my cell phone and I dialed the police. I stood there, holding that stupid note in my hand, feeling my blood boil. Your vehicle has been removed to maintain the harmonious atmosphere of the neighborhood. The community cannot tolerate offensive messages. If you wish to recover it, please contact the towing company. I read those words again, trying to understand the level of insanity that was going on. Did she really have my car taken away just because she didn't like the sticker on it? The woman decided she had the power of police, judge, and executioner all at the same time, and simply made my car disappear. And she even had the nerve to write as if she were doing humanity a service. But the worst thing of all, she left no contact details, no information about the supposed towing company, no address, no phone number, nothing. In other words, she just dropped this bombshell in my lap and thought I'd accept it quietly. Only now, She was about to learn that she had messed with the wrong person. My head boiled, and for a second, I considered marching up to her door, punching that badly painted wood, and demanding answers. But I took a deep breath. If I got there the way I was, I'd end up losing control. And this woman didn't deserve to see my anger. She deserved to see what would happen next. So instead of acting on impulse, I took out my cell phone and dialed the police. Police, what's the emergency? I took a deep breath before answering. My car was towed without my permission. I don't know where it is. The attendant paused before continuing. Sir, was your vehicle removed by the town hall? Non bother. It was a neighbor. This time, the pause was even longer. A neighbor? Yes. She didn't like the sticker on my car and had a tow truck remove it without my consent. The silence on the other end of the line was almost funny. Even the attendant couldn't believe the level of insanity in the story. Sir, do you have proof of this? I have a note from her admitting what she did. Okay, sir. I'll send a car to your address. And then all we had to do was wait. Because now this woman was going to have to explain what she'd done to the police. I stood on the balcony, arms crossed, watching the street while I waited. And then, 20 minutes later, there was the police car. 2 policemen got out of the car, and I went straight up to them. Did you make the complaint? Asked one of them, a tall man with a serious expression. Yes. My car was towed without my permission. I know exactly who did it. The policeman took out a notebook and began to take notes. Do you know where the vehicle was taken? I have no idea. The woman who had it towed didn't leave any information. The other policeman raised his eyebrows. She didn't say where the vehicle was? Nothing. She just left me a ridiculous note, trying to justify it. I handed over the paper, and one of the officers read it out loud. Your vehicle has been removed to maintain the harmonious environment of the neighborhood. He looked at his partner with an expression that said, Is this serious? The other policeman sighed. Right. Let's talk to this neighbor. And this is where things got really good. The officers knocked on her door. Silence. They waited a few seconds and knocked again. Nothing. One of the policemen knocked harder. And then, after a long pause, the handle turned. The woman opened the door just a little, as if she was hoping it was all just a misunderstanding. But it wasn't. Ma'am, we've received a report that you've removed a vehicle without permission. Can we talk about it? She blinked a few times, forcing a smile. Oh, that? It was nothing. Just a matter of aesthetics for the neighborhood. The policeman didn't react. Do you understand that removing a vehicle without the owner's consent is a crime? Her smile disappeared. But the sticker! She began to justify herself. He was spreading hatred. That can't be allowed. The other policeman crossed his arms. So you thought you had the right to tow someone else's car? Her mouth opened and closed a few times. She was at a loss. And the best thing? She had no way out. Because now, the only thing she could do was return my car. If this woman thought she was going to have my car taken away and get away with it, she clearly didn't know who she was dealing with. The policeman stood there at her door, waiting for an answer that didn't come. The woman opened and closed her mouth a few times, looking around as if trying to find a miraculous way out of the situation, but there wasn't. She was trapped. And what about me? I was enjoying every second of it. She took a deep breath, trying to regain her composure, but she couldn't hide her nervousness. Her hands were shaking slightly, and she seemed to be desperately looking for a way to turn the situation around. But the problem? There was no way out for her. She tried to keep her voice steady, but you could tell she was shaking inside. His car was spreading hatred. The policeman kept his expression neutral, clearly not patient with the nonsense he was hearing. Do you understand that this does not give you the right to remove someone else's property? She didn't answer immediately. For the first time since we met, she realized that she had lost, but she still didn't want to admit it. She tried to argue. She tried to justify it. But with every sentence that came out of her mouth, the situation only got worse. She said she just wanted to maintain the harmony of the neighborhood. She said she couldn't tolerate certain ideologies in the neighborhood. He said he was protecting the other residents. The police exchanged glances. They had had enough. Then came the best part. One of the policemen took his radio out of his pocket and made a quick call to the dispatcher. After a few minutes, he received an answer. Then, with a serious expression, he looked directly at her. "We've located the vehicle." The woman froze. Yes, the police already knew exactly where my car was. And now she had no way out. It turns out that when someone calls a tow truck to tow a car, there is an official record of the request. And what did they find out? That she hadn't called a regular company. She had hired a clandestine service. In other words, not even the tow truck knew it was illegal. She simply called any number, made up a story about an abandoned car, and had my vehicle taken away without anyone questioning it. Only now, the truth had come out. The police ordered the tow truck to return my car immediately. And do you know what happened? The woman tried to argue again. She even had the audacity to say that I didn't deserve my car back. But in the end, she lost. And while my car was going back to where it was supposed to be, this woman finally realized that she had screwed up her own life. If my neighbor thought she was going to have my car taken away and get away with it, she clearly didn't know who she was dealing with. The tow truck was located, and the police ordered that my car be returned immediately. Meanwhile, the woman stood there in the doorway, completely unresponsive. She realized that she had lost. But what really made me smile was her expression when the police began to explain what would happen next. Because if she thought that all she had to do was return the car and everything would be fine, she was very wrong. She had committed a crime, and now she was going to pay for it. I stood there with my arms folded, watching the scene with silent pleasure. The woman tried to argue, tried to justify herself, tried to play the victim. But it was no use. The police weren't buying any excuses. She kept going on and on. I just wanted to protect the community. That sticker was offensive. I did everyone a favor. And the police? They just listened, wrote everything down. And with every excuse she made, it became clearer that she had screwed herself. Until one of the policemen, out of patience, let loose, "Madam, do you understand that removing a car without the owner's permission constitutes theft?" Her face went white. Until that moment, she still thought she could get out of this with a simple scolding. But now she realized that she was being formally accused. But, it wasn't theft, she tried to argue. I just had it relocated. The policeman didn't blink. Did you have permission to do that? She opened her mouth, but no sound came out, because the answer was no. She knew. I knew it. The policeman knew. So what now? Now she was going to face the consequences. After a lot of talking and note-taking, the police finally said they were going to take her to give evidence. And that was the part I liked best, because as the woman got into the police car, the whole neighborhood was watching. People came out to see what was happening. Some whispered among themselves, others just looked on with surprised expressions. And what about me? I just stood there, with my arms folded, enjoying every second of this spectacle. The woman who had spent years trying to control the neighborhood, supervising other people's houses, giving orders as if she owned the place, was now being taken away by the police. And from that day on, everything changed. People finally realized that she had no power at all. At first, it was funny to see her reaction. First, she tried to hold her pose. She crossed the street with her usual snub nose, pretending that nothing had happened. But you could tell by the way she pressed her lips together that she was bothered, that she felt the weight of the stares. And there were a lot of looks. That day, the whole neighborhood seemed to have united in silence. The people who used to say a forced good morning passed by. Her friends who used to chat with her at the neighborhood club moved to another sidewalk. And the neighbors who used to be scared to death that they would be the next targets now finally seemed to understand that they no longer had to bow down to her. She even tried to justify herself afterwards. She said it was all a misunderstanding, that she didn't want to hurt anyone. But nobody bought that story, because now everyone knew who she really was. They knew about the theater, the lies, the veiled threats, And when people find out the truth about someone, there's no going back. Over the next few days, she tried to go about her routine as if nothing had happened. But the change was visible. Before, she paraded the streets as if she owned the neighborhood. Now, she avoided eye contact. The woman who used to make a point of being the center of attention gradually began to disappear. The weekly club meetings, she stopped going. The morning walks, gone. The absurd complaints, absolute silence. And a few weeks later, her house came up for sale. The sign appeared out of nowhere, planted right in front of the always immaculate garden. One of those eye-catching ads, with big letters and a contact number. At first, I thought it was a joke, but it wasn't. And that's when it hit me. She really was leaving. The queen of the neighborhood, the woman who had spent years terrorizing the neighborhood with her ridiculous rules and senseless accusations, was running away with her tail between her legs. They say that no one could stand her anymore. Even her few remaining friends began to avoid her, for fear of being dragged into the hole she dug herself. And what about me? I carried on living my life as normal, with my car exactly where it had always been. And now, with no one to bother. No disapproving looks, no invented fines, no anonymous notes threatening to call the authorities for absurdities, like grass 1 centimeter longer than allowed. The neighborhood breathed a sigh of relief. It was as if a weight had been lifted. Over the next few days, everyone seemed a little lighter. People went back to chatting on the sidewalk without fear of being reported for disturbing order. Children went back to playing in the street without fear of being warned for inappropriate behavior. And for the first time in years, the neighborhood finally looked like a nice place to live. If you liked it, don't forget to comment, subscribe to the channel, and leave a like.